worldwide.
That's because you are still talking about overuse.
Unlike arguments over Brexit, this is one debate the British Prime Minister can enjoy.
Good arguments on both sides.
She might be getting some tough love from the European Union, but many in China are bending over backwards to greet Theresa May. The Chinese premier assured her about the future relations between their two countries.
We are facing the UK's exit from the European Union, but our relationship will not change because of changes in Britain-Europe ties.
But May arrived in China with more ambitious plans than just a continuation of the status quo.
You made reference, Premier Li, to the United Kingdom leaving the European Union. As we do so and become ever more outward-looking, and as China continues to reform and open up, we're committed to deepening our strong and vital partnership.
May's efforts are yielding some instant results. China's agreed to open up its market to agricultural goods from the UK. The two countries have pledged to work more closely on resolving global conflicts, and they've set up a committee to work out a bilateral free trade deal.
We will work together to explore all options to deliver a high level of ambition for that future trading relationship, and we've today launched a joint trade and investment review to identify priorities for promoting growth in goods, services and investment.
May's government has until April of next year to complete Brexit. Her charm offensive in China can help ensure Britain's not short of trade partners come May 2019. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
Joining me now from London is Martin Jacques. He's an expert on China and author of When China Rules the World. Martin, great to have you on the show once again. Looked at from China's perspective, is the UK more or less attractive to China, inside or outside of Europe?
I think less attractive. I mean, while it's been a member of the European Union, then clearly it had influence in the European Union. And in some ways, the UK's position was more sympathetic to China in that it was, in a sense, more internationally and globally minded than a lot of the continental countries. But with China, with the UK leaving the European Union, obviously it's going to lose its influence within the European Union. Now, that doesn't mean that the Chinese aren't interested in the UK. I think the Chinese approach is, let's have as many friends in this operation as possible. And therefore, I think the Chinese will be looking for some good arrangements with UK going forward.
OK, so specifically, what is it that China is looking for in a UK outside of Europe? Are they looking at perhaps legal expertise or Britain's premier position in project finance, for example, those sorts of things?
Yeah, I think that China's interested in the UK as a place to invest and a place to develop economic cooperation. But I think probably the most important thing from the point of view of the Chinese is the Belt and Road Initiative, which is this huge project, which, in my view, will transform the Eurasian landmass over the next several decades. It's going to be enormously important globally. And China would like to see the UK on board, recognising the Belt and Road Initiative and participating in it. For example, I mean, the City of London could certainly be an important contributor on the financial side.
Martin, though, the Belt and Road Initiative hasn't been without its problems already. I mean, when you look at some of the Chinese investments, for example, in Sri Lanka, in Pakistan, in places in Africa, they have resulted in problems, in some cases social problems, with people rising up and saying they don't want China's presence in their particular countries. Is the UK setting itself up for some major problems with China? And there have been problems with Chinese investment in the UK already. I'm thinking Hinkley Point, for example.
Yeah, well, I think the picture you paint is a little bit ill-balanced, actually. I mean, you're certainly right that in, for example, Myanmar and Sri Lanka, China has suffered a kickback because people associated the Chinese government too closely with the regimes which became unpopular. But I don't think that is the general picture. I mean, certainly the Chinese have been learning hard, by the way, from all its investments and production and so on. But generally, if you go across Africa, for example, Chinese investment and Chinese relationship economically is widely welcomed in Africa and has been in many ways crucial to the turnaround in Africa over the last decade and the big increase in interest rates. So I think, of course, you're right, there are some negativities here, but the general picture is very positive. And this is true, by the way, for example, across Southeast Asia as well.
Let's talk about Theresa May. Do you think that she has what it takes to negotiate with China? Jim O'Neill, for example, the former chief economist of Goldman Sachs, he quit a China-UK investment group led by George Osborne, saying that he was baffled by Theresa May's approach to Beijing.
Well, there's no question that Theresa May is a very weak prime minister. I mean, she came into office immediately after the referendum, rejecting membership of the European Union. The Conservative Party is extraordinarily divided, and therefore, she, you know, to be quite frank about it, you know, it's like civil war within the Conservative Party, and the country is very divided. And in that context, she could not really be a strong prime minister. But I also think she's not a very strong leader in herself. I don't think she has a strong sense of direction. Now, really, to embrace the question of the relationship with China, you need vision. You need a strategic sense of direction. And that just doesn't just go for a British leader, it goes for any European or any leader in the world, because China is transforming the world. And therefore, the leaders that can grasp that and embrace it and find ways of directing in a positive way are going to be at a serious advantage over the coming period.
We are going to have to leave it there. Martin Jacques, China expert in London, thank you ever so much.